Good morning, good morning. There we go. Aren't you glad I fixed the audio right off the bat today? So weird how it resets it sometimes. Hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Oh my gosh, I'm ahead in my PowerPoint. We're going to be discussing the number one mindset flaw of poker players, which, spoiler alert, is entitlement. And it's important to realize that the mind is a powerful thing. We'll let people trickle in before we get started. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday morning. Today, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, I, Jonathan Little, will be streaming a $2,000 poker free roll. Costs you $0 to get in. You just have to follow the directions at pokercoaching.com/freeroll. They're right over there. So far, we've given away $4,000 over the last 2 weeks. We're going to be giving away $2,000 every single week for the next year. You might as well get in and get yours. First place is usually about $400. You can cash it out immediately. You can sit there, you can grind it up, you can do whatever you want. It's important to recognize that the mind is a very, very, very powerful thing, and that your thoughts, the things that are going through your brain, heavily influence your actions. So you want to make sure that you are having good, strong, sane, logical, reasonable thoughts going through your head, and that you're not wrapped up with all sorts of nonsense that can inevitably get in there. And at least in my opinion, the first step to getting rid of a lot of the nonsense is to stop surrounding yourself with a lot of nonsense. I realize we live in a turbulent world today in 2024, to say the least. If you're watching this in 2034, let me know how it's going. And there's a lot to get distracted by, but it's important to focus on the things that matter. So what actually matters? Well, that's important for you to figure out to you, right? You essentially get to determine what enters your brain within reason. Now, if you have to go to work and people come around you and they interact with you, you know, sometimes you don't have 100% control over what happens, but to some extent, you really do. Like if you're sitting there all day scrolling on Twitter, doom scrolling to death. If you're doom scrolling to death on Twitter, reading a bunch of nonsense is probably not going to work out for you, especially when new algorithm changes, right? If you are constantly watching doom and gloom on the television, probably not going to work so well for you. If you're surrounding yourself with people who complain about bad beats all day, every day, probably not going to work out for you. A whole lot of things that can sidetrack you, and that's not good. This morning, crypto's sidetracking a lot of people. A lot of the currencies are down 10 or 15 or 20%. The stock market is distracting people. They're down 10 or 15 or 20%. Everything's down 10 or 15 or 20% this morning, August 5th, 2024. But at the end of the day, that's kind of just a distraction. Now, I realize if you're near retirement age or something and it really matters, that's relevant. If you over-leveraged yourself, that's relevant. But again, you didn't have to participate in these things. In exchange for participating in these things, hopefully you make some money. But maybe that's a distraction. I personally have a lot of money in retirement accounts and my kids' college savings funds. And I know that downswings are going to happen. That's part of investing in stuff. And I don't really care at all. And that's a choice I made, right? I could have massively over-leveraged myself. I could have gotten liquidated. Some people who had tons of money have gone bankrupt today. But hopefully they realize they made a decision. And sometimes the decisions do not work out, which is why it's important to keep a proper bankroll, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see what all of you are saying in the chat before we move forward. You took 5th in last week's free roll. Awesome. Congratulations. Probably got you, what, $70 or something like that? Here you say the number one mindset is that people are scared and results-oriented. To some extent, that's what we're talking about here today. James says, you're up $6 on the free rolls. Nice. You tried to download on your phone, and it doesn't work. It works on Android devices and computers of all types. It does not work on Apple iPhones because they don't necessarily like places where you play poker. Am I going to the BetMGM Pennsylvania? No. I'm not going anywhere until the Poker Go Studio in Las Vegas in September. I always take a month off in August to go for family vacation. So that's actually happening on Friday. No poker from me for a while. Actually, that's not true. I'll be streaming a 25-50 game on Coin Poker on Sundays at noon Eastern Time. I think I'm streaming those. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Of course, we'll still have our weekly free rolls on Monday. Either I'll be streaming them or somebody else. How do you contact me? Support at pokercoaching.com. Stocks are on sale. Indeed. Sometimes your mindset is not right after busting a big tournament, and you play a smaller buy-in one later. Oh, that's for sure. 5th place was $92. Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I learned something about myself a long time ago. Anytime I bust a main event, I typically don't play another tournament that day. I have tried that many times, and I have probably O for X. Now, of course, it could just be variance, right? But I have found that in general, I don't really want to play after I bust a, call it, big tournament. And this was more of the case back in the day when the big tournament was the last or next to last tournament of a series. Now the main event's like the first tournament of the series a lot of the time. And, well, you better be prepared to play some more poker. That said, if I go and play a poker tournament series and I bust the main event and, there's nothing like really pressing I need to play, maybe if I have to skip some tournament or something, like it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day, right? And typically, if I, Jonathan Little, who don't really care about poker results, is slightly down and not really wanting to play poker after busting a main event, I got to imagine everybody else is too. I realize some people want to get right back there in the saddle and play again, but that's a tough thing. Jonathan Jaffe, the greatest educator you ever hired? No, that would be Johnny Bittencourt. You may not know Johnny Bittencourt. He owned a large college tutoring site that taught people college courses better than professors. And he actually helped architect the tournament and cash game masterclasses at pokercoaching.com, as well as a whole lot of the rest of the stuff. He is a world-class educator who wanted to learn poker. Now he's a great poker player. He's getting in there. He's battling in the high stakes. And if you want to learn how to teach, you need to hire someone who's a world-class teacher. That's just common sense. But no, Jonathan Jaffe makes great content on pokercoaching.com. Make sure you check it out. Okay. What's the number one mindset flaw in my opinion? There are plenty of mindset flaws you can have, like I said. But I think the number one mindset flaw people have is entitlement. So many poker players, especially in the small and medium stakes, think that they deserve to win. They think they're supposed to win when they get it all in with aces against twos or aces against jack four offsuit. They think they're supposed to win. But you're not. You're supposed to win 80% of the time. A lot of people think they're supposed to win most of their flips, or they think they're supposed to win even half of their flips. And when they lose 80% of their flips, their 50-50s, they get mad. But why? Variance exists. A lot of people think they're not supposed to get bad beat in any scenario. They think that if they get bad beat, some drastic, humongous injustice has been done to them, and they get angry, they get mad, they get bitter, they get frustrated. And this is why you see a lot of the poker players who are stuck in the small and medium stakes games, mad, bitter, frustrated, and generally unhappy with their scenario. A lot of these players also think that if they just didn't take these bad beats, that they would be able to play higher stakes and compete with the best players. It turns out, though, all players take bad beats. All players only win 80% of their 80-20s. All players only win 50% of their 50-50s on average. And the players who make better decisions in general rise to the top. It's actually not the 80-20s and 50-50s and all those hands that make or break a great poker player. The thing that makes or breaks the great poker players are the spots that can actually be played somewhat differently, right? There are a lot of scenarios in poker where you could call or you could fold, or you could fold or you could raise or whatever. And the weaker players, the bad players, take the play that makes the least amount of money, and the best players take the play that makes the best amount of money more often than not. They're essentially, call them like reciprocal scenarios, where if I get aces and you get kings and we get it all in, we both probably did nothing wrong, right? Everyone who plays anywhere near well is going to get it in with aces against kings pre-flop for whatever, 30 big blinds, right? One of us is going to win, one's going to lose. Neither of us made or lost any equity on average in this scenario. So in that scenario, if you get in with aces against kings and lose, a lot of people think, oh man, that's so unlucky, I'm so mad, I'm so angry. But you got to realize if the cards were reversed, you'd get it in too, right? So nothing really happened there. That's just like a swing the game's going to give you. And that's important to note, right? I'm Friendly Poker. Hey, mate, you've been watching my videos and you enjoy about 90% of them. Well, what's wrong with the other 10%? Let me know. We'll try to make them better. That said, everything's not for everyone. Balanced Poker says you love the topic. Good, I'm glad to hear it. You think dealing with the mindset issues that they mostly don't understand the issue. Well, yeah, we're about to get to that in the very next slide, funny enough. So anyway, there are a lot of spots in poker that are very reciprocal where if you are good and I am good, we're going to play the hands in the same way if we were both in each other's shoes, right? If the scenario was reversed, where I'm in your seat and you're in my seat. So those spots don't matter. What matters is all the little tiny spots. For example, maybe on the flop, against your particular opponent, you're supposed to continuation bet 70% of the time, right? Let's say that's the actual good, adjusted, exploitative strategy, 70%. But say you continuation bet 100%, and I continuation bet 70%. Maybe this time it works out. Maybe next time it works out. Maybe this time it doesn't. Maybe next time it doesn't. Whatever. But on average, every time you continuation bet 100% when you're supposed to be betting 70%, you're going to be losing a little bit of equity over and over and over and over again. And those situations come up over and over and over again. And the reason the bad players, well, the players who are playing the small stakes and are stuck there, one of the really main reasons is they're just not that good at poker. They think they are. They think it's all about winning the flips and winning the all-ins and getting lucky, but it's not. It's about making better decisions over and over and over and over again. Now, certainly there are some poker players who are actually good at poker, who are stuck in the smaller stakes games for other reasons. Like maybe they spend all their money, right? Like let's say you're a poker player and you make $5,000 a month crushing 2-5 no limit hold'em, but you spend $5,000 a month on your expenses because you have a lot of expenses for whatever reason and you can't get them down for whatever reason. Well, I hate to break it to you, you're never going to be able to move up because you're spending all the money you bring in. And if you ever go on any sort of downswing, you're going to get crushed, right? And that could crush people. Sometimes people play really well, but if they take 4 bad beats in a row, they decide to have a bottle of bourbon and they go off and lose 7 buy-ins every single time. Some people refuse to lose a winner at a cash game. If they are down, they just sit there and lose and lose and lose, or they get even, and they usually get even. But when they lose, it's a catastrophic loss for like 20 buy-ins or something ridiculous. Some players play pretty well most of the time, and then they just sporadically do something silly. A lot of people, especially players who are not so studied at poker, they think they're supposed to play well most of the time, then they're supposed to mix it up by doing something sporadic. Hate to break it to you, making sporadic horrible plays is not how you mix it up, that's how you lose. And, well, that gets them. You notice my likes are a bit low. Click the like and subscribe button then, everyone, please. That would be very beneficial for me. Do you prefer JL or Jonathan for my fans in the chat? I think I actually prefer JL because it's shorter. I want fewer words. The fewer words, the better. Fewer words are better. The conciser you can make a point, the better it is because I have to read all of these. I know you all don't read all the chat, but I do read all of the chat. All right, so how can we help with this entitlement issue? If you all have any tips for helping with entitlement, feel free to type them in the chat. First things first, you got to understand variance. There's a poker variance calculator called primedope.com or pokerdope.com, either one. Pokerdope.com is what it used to be called. That's what I remember. Pokerdope.com. Go there. Check out their tournament variance calculator and cash game variance calculator. You'll see that even if you're a good poker player, pretty much no matter what, if you're a tournament player, your results are typically going to go down, 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 spike. Down, 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 spike. Down, 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 spike. So, in tournaments, you are usually going to be down from your peak, from your highest possible bankroll you've ever been at, even if you're a good, strong, world-class player. And that's especially true if you're playing tournaments with a lot of players in them. Because you don't take first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth places all that often, right? And for that reason, you're often going to be down. You're often going to feel like you're losing. It's important to realize, though, people think this is a joke, but I don't think it is. Your feelings don't matter that much. I've made this as a joke a few times at televised final tables, and everybody thinks I'm crazy. What do you mean your feelings don't matter? Honestly, everyone. I have so many nonsensical feelings running through my head and nonsensical thoughts, and I think I have them pretty much under control. And if I have that going through my head, I can only imagine what other people have going through their head. I'm playing this 25-50 streamer game on Coin Poker, starting in a week and a half, I think, or in 2 weeks, whatever it is. And I went back and watched some of the streams from the players who have been streaming it, and goodness gracious, some of them are all over the place. Most of them are good poker players, but some of their, at least their banter, their thoughts, their mindsets are crazy. You can watch streamers on Twitch. If you go to Twitch right now, go to the poker section, go to any random person, odds are the things they're saying are crazy. Or at least they're not sane and thoughtful, right? Some of them are. Again, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them play good poker, good enough poker to win. But a lot of the thoughts are crazy. And as you have these crazy thoughts flowing through your brain, some of them are going to stick, and some of them are going to poke out, and some of them are going to inevitably make you play differently. And I don't think that's good. I think that's bad. If anything, you want to tone these things down. You have to realize the things I'm thinking are not all that relevant. And most things you think are not all that relevant. Something else I don't think a lot of people agree with, but I think it's very true, is that if you have an opinion about something, but you're not very well versed in that thing, your opinion is irrelevant. And if your opinion is irrelevant, you should not think that it is relevant. You should not be acting as if it is the definitive truth. Now, it is very difficult to know what you know and what you don't know, right? A lot of people think they know something, but they don't know something. For example, just looking around my desk, what can I use an example? I have this deck of cards here, okay? I have this deck of cards. I went through a lot of pain and hassle and difficulty to get this deck of cards printed. This is the second iteration of it. Yeah, cute little cards. Cute little cards. Yeah. I think I know a decent amount about printing of poker cards at this point. The question, though, is, do I? I have spent probably 100 hours dealing with getting poker cards printed. Okay? But I, Jonathan Little, still recognize that I am nowhere near an expert on the printing of playing cards. I bet I know more than almost all of you, who's never printed a deck of playing cards in their life. But I also recognize I could have done a whole lot better in all sorts of ways. And I will try to do better in a whole lot of ways. I, Jonathan Little, have spent more time at poker than all of you. I still recognize, though, that I have a lot to learn. I study poker every single day. Last night and every night, whenever I wake up in the middle of the night and can't sleep for whatever reason, I wake up and I study poker. Probably not the best way to fall back to sleep. But that is what I do every single time. And it's very important to know what you do not know. And it's important to know that you don't know much about pretty much everything. Certainly we all know enough to get by, right? We all know enough to survive in the world. But that's because we're bumbling around with other people who don't know anything either. And I think it's very important to surround yourself with people who actually know, or know way better than you, things about all aspects of life, right? I mean, again, going back to this, do not surround yourself with nonsense. If on the poker break, for example, you're playing a poker tournament, you take a 15-minute break, if all of your friends want to talk about hands and talk about bad beats, if they either, and again, probably another take people don't like, if they want to tell bad beats, or if they want to talk about poker strategy and you don't respect their poker strategy, unless you're trying to be super duper nice, go do something else. On my poker breaks, I typically do not talk to anyone. Now, if you want to come and say hello and take a picture or whatever, sure, no problem. But I'm not going to sit around and talk strategy with anybody because I don't want to. It's a distraction to me, right? And if I am playing a tournament for any amount of money, and the goal for me is to try to maximize the amount of money I win in this tournament, I think your 15-minute break time should not be spent clouding your mind further, right? If anything, it needs to be spent clearing your mind. Talk about bad variance with good hands and you lose with them. Understand variance. If you play well, you have to take on some amount of risk. Let's just read this slide. We're going to read it word by word. If you play well, you have to take on some amount of risk. That means you're going to lose sometimes. Let's read the next line. Even if you are a world-class player playing against generally bad players, you will still lose some portion of the time. I have a few cash games I play that are exceptionally nice, and I still lose sometimes. Not too often, but sometimes. Do I get sad, depressed, unhappy when I lose? No. I don't care. I'm supposed to lose sometimes. I know I'm supposed to lose sometimes. If I did not lose sometimes, the game would start to die. Take a look at 7-card stud. 7-card stud used to be the most popular, or at least one of the most popular poker variants played in casinos worldwide. Why is 7-card stud basically not played at all anymore? You know why? I know why. Take a second, type it in the chat. You all probably know. While you're typing, click the like and subscribe button. I'm going to have some brain fuel. This is good to be reminded of in the midst of a downswing. Indeed. Ascension, GTO, good morning. Ascension always crushes up our tournaments. Ascension won his way to the Bahamas last year to play the main event. Won his way to Las Vegas to play a bunch of poker tournaments too. Is 7-card stud largely solved? I honestly don't know, and I honestly don't care. 7-card stud is a dead game because it is too skill intensive. Now, why is 7-card stud more skill intensive than no limit hold'em or limit hold'em? Why is 7-card stud more skill intensive than limit hold'em? Which was the other game back in the day. Back in the day, there were two main poker games. Limit hold'em and 7-card stud. Limit hold'em has a pre-flop betting round, a flop betting round, a turn betting round, and a river betting round. 7-card stud has third card, fourth card, fifth card, sixth card, seventh card. 5 betting rounds, 3 of which are big. 3 big betting rounds, 2 small betting rounds. Limit hold'em has 2 small betting rounds, 2 big betting rounds. That alone was enough to make the game too skill intensive. So, what happened? Well, the bad players lost too often. When the bad players lose too often, they start to quit. Or move to a game where there's more variance. Okay, take a look what's happening today, especially in a lot of cash games. A lot of cash games have gone from only no limit hold'em to now they're moving to some extent to pot limit Omaha. Now, I still don't think pot limit Omaha is going to persist as the most played game or anything. But among gamblers, let's say, I think a lot of them like PLO way more than no limit hold'em. Why do they like PLO way more than no limit hold'em? At the end of the day, they like it more because they get to win more often. Why do they get to win more often at PLO than no limit hold'em? Well, because when you get it in PLO, you usually have some amount of outs. You got way more cards, right? When you get it in pre-flop in PLO, you're like, whatever, 42% at worst or whatever it is, right? Essentially, equities are closer, right? So as equities get closer, the bad players get to win more often. So the question then becomes, what's the ideal game? Well, there's some line between good players get to win more often than not, but also bad players get to win sometimes, right? And if you're really good at no limit hold'em and your opponents are terrible at no limit hold'em, yeah, they're still going to win sometimes, but not very often to the point that they will eventually quit. Or lose a bunch of money. But that's important to note that skill level or skill advantage that's possible in the game is very relevant. There's less variance in PLO, surely? No, there's about 4 times as much variance on average in PLO than no limit hold'em. Assuming everyone's decent. Why? Because again, instead of getting it in 60-40, you're getting it in 52-48. 52-48s over and over and over again jacks up the variance. Where 60-40s typically lowers the variance. There's way more variance in PLO. Anyway, poker is not chess, where if you are way better than your opponent, like 800 points more than your opponent, you'll win every time in chess. You will not win every time in poker. You will not. You will not, you will not, you will not, you will not. If you take the literal best poker player in the world and slot him in against someone who is merely okay. Now, I'm not saying the worst poker player ever, because the worst poker player ever will just fold every hand. If you fold every hand, obviously you're dead, right? But if you're, you know the rules of the game, you're trying to win, you've studied poker for like 6 minutes. Heads up. Unless that player folds way too often, the best player is going to lose sometimes to the worst player in poker. Whereas if they played chess, the best player against someone who barely knows the rules would never lose to someone at chess. Okay? Been playing mixed game tournaments and you're having better results than no limit hold'em. How can you promote mixed games? I honestly think mixed games don't have much of a future, especially at the middle stakes. Why is that? Okay. At the small stakes, people are playing for fun. They don't care if they win or lose. Blanket statement, more often than not true. Why do you know they don't care about winning or losing? Because you can tell by their actions. If they cared about winning or losing, They would devote their life to poker. They would specialize. They would spend a ton of time getting very good at something, etc. At the highest stakes, you're playing for so much money to the point that it mitigates the major downsides of mixed games. What are the major downsides of mixed games? There's a few very, very, very big, massive downsides to mixed games, especially in live poker. Does anybody know what it is? Mixed games are slow. So is Pot Limit Omaha. So in mixed games, typically you're not going to be a specialist or very, very, very good at every single game. So you're not going to have a big edge across the board, right? Whereas in, let's say, one game only, no limit hold'em only, let's say, you can have a pretty big edge if your opponents are not very good. So it is possible to win money even at the middle stakes. Like at 5-10 no limit hold'em, you can make $100 an hour. Pretty good win rate, right? In mixed games, I don't know what a comparable size is, again, because I don't really care that much because I understand this concept. At a comparable buy-in level, I don't think you're making $100 an hour. Let's say you make what? 2 bets per hour if you're really good compared to your opponents, maybe? So you need to be playing what, 25, 50 limit? Does that sound right? Something like that, give or take? And the game is so slow. I don't know how many hands of mixed games they play per hour, but I've played a decent amount of mixed games in my life. It's not like I'm completely dense to the topic. But the game is slow. The game is slow. I realize the players are bad very often. They're worse at no limit hold'em. I'm sorry, they're worse at mixed games than they are at other games people specialize in, like no limit hold'em, because you got to learn a bunch of stuff. But I'm not sure the edge is all that big. I do realize there is an edge, and if you're like a sicko at specific games, you will probably crush it. Take John Hennigan, for example, right? John Hennigan crushes 7-card stud games, so it seems. All of them. Why? Probably because he's devoted his life to learning these 7-card stud games better than almost anybody else. So he crushes the games. People look at that and say, oh, this is a very crushable game. You got to realize that guy has devoted substantially more time and effort and energy to learning the game than probably anybody else in the world. You don't need to compare yourself to the person who's the absolute best in the world. You need to compare yourself to the guy who's like number 500 in the world. How much is the guy who's number 500 in the world, 7-card stud, winning? Because that's probably where you're going to end up and everybody else, right? Because you're probably not going to be number 1 in the world if you're starting today. And the answer is probably not a whole lot, if I had to guess, especially given the lack of volume. You also have to find games to play, right? If you walk into any casino in Las Vegas that has a poker room, you can play no limit hold'em today, right? You have to understand, if you play 15 hands per hour, which I would not be shocked is the speed of some mixed games, especially in casinos where the dealers are not well versed in the games, you just can't make any money. You just can't make any money. You're not playing any poker, you're just sitting there. You're just sitting there. If you're just sitting there, you're not gonna make any money. PLO has a similar issue, by the way. There's more variance in PLO, which is fine. It's fine to have more variance if you can still play a lot of hands. At the end of the day, volume cures variance. And if you don't put in volume, you're just gonna sit there. You're just gonna sit there and experience swings. All right. It's important to stay sane. Long time ago, one of my friends, Irie guy, Craig Hartman, on a now defunct internet poker forum, said at some point you will run far worse than you ever thought possible. Young, stupid Jonathan Little actually listened to this advice. Can you believe 21-year-old Jonathan Little listened to this advice? Unbelievable. And I, for that reason, kept a gigantic bankroll, far bigger than I needed. Back in the day, I was playing $200 buy-in sit-and-goes, and I had about $100,000 that I made a point to always keep very liquid, very ready. 500 buy-ins. Now, did I really need 500 buy-ins? No. I probably needed more like 300. But he said at some point in my life, I'm going to run worse than I ever thought possible. And he was right. I eventually bought a condominium, moved out of my parents' house. This is when I was a young kid. Maybe I was 19 or 20 even then. Did I buy a nice Corvette? No, I've never had a Corvette. I've never bought a nice car. I won a nice car in a bet one time, but I've never bought a nice car. And anyway, I had like $60K liquid at this point after buying a condominium, which, you know, I didn't lose the value of the condominium. It still existed. I lived there, right? I was down to $60K, give or take. I lost from 60K down to 20. Like shortly after that. Just went on a 200 buy-in downswing, straight down. Straight down. Now, it sure is a good thing that I kept more than the 100 buy-ins everybody else said I should. Right? Because if I kept only 100 buy-ins like everybody else did, I would have been broke two times over. I would have had to sell the condominium, pay 7% VIG, etc., etc., etc. And that would have been a disaster. Instead, I kept a big bankroll. I moved down to the tiny stakes to make sure I was a winner. I played $10 games, $20 games, $30 games, $50 games, $100 games, and got back to $200 games, then moved to 500s, then moved to 1000s, then moved to 2000s. But I won 100 buy-ins at every single level. I made a point to win 100 buy-ins at every single level to prove to myself that I was a winner, because I knew that, like, look, downswings happen. Maybe I'm not actually that good at poker, because back then I'd only been playing a year or two, right? I didn't know I was a winner. I was new to the game. By the way, if you've been playing poker 2 years or less, hate to break it to you, you're new to the game. Now, certainly today I have way more information than we did back in the day. We didn't know anything back in the day. We were just bumbling around, clicking buttons. Apparently I clicked buttons way better than everybody else because I won a ton of buy-ins. But we didn't really know how to get good quickly, right? Beyond run, push, fold spots through a ICM simulator. And long story short, I survived because purely of this advice right here. At some point, you will run worse than you ever thought possible. This has happened to me multiple times in my career. 2 times at the World Series of Poker. I've gone out there and I've won 0 tournaments. I've made deep runs in 0 tournaments, and I cashed 0 tournaments. 0. 2 times. 2 times out of, what? What year is it? 2 times out of 21. 21? 20? Goodness gracious. No. 2 times out of 18. 2 times out of 18, I have gone 0 for X. X was maybe 35 or 40. 0 for 35 or 40. Now, how many of you have gone 35 or 40 tournaments without a cash? A lot of you have not. Why? Because you've not put in a substantial amount of volume. If you put in a lot of volume, inevitably, you will have big downswings. And you'll have big upswings. I was very lucky, actually, that after the end of both of these downswings, I won $1 million in a tournament. So that was nice. It's nice to get a large chunk of money after you sit there and you grind your face off and get crushed at the end of every day and get in the money 0 times. Then all of a sudden, all right, things finally stick and you win $1 million. That makes life easy. I understand. But if I was not bankrolled for this, I'd just be broke. Right? I have a lot of poker friends who generally ran pretty hot at the beginning of their poker careers, especially in live poker. Like, they were online grinders like me. We all made $0 turn into like a few $100,000 by the time we turned 21, and we went to play live poker. Some of them immediately did well at live poker, won $1 million, and thought everything was nice and easy. My first year of live poker, I also lost a ton of money. I think I had $350K in my name when I was 21, and I lost down to like 100. So I lost $250K in the first year or so of live poker. Probably because I wasn't very good. Didn't know what I was doing. And by the way, I do still stick to this. Most people who have been playing poker less than a year or two probably have a lot of holes in their game, whether it be their mindset, whether it be their actual poker tournament strategy, whether it be exploiting specific opponents, etc., etc., etc. And I was a fish. Or was I a fish? Or maybe I was unlucky. It's hard to know. But again, I had a huge bankroll to the point that I could withstand the swings. If I did not understand what this says, all the things that come from this topic here, should we put it in bold? Control B. If I did not understand all of this, should we underline it? If I did not understand this fully, I would have gone broke many times in my career. Who is Craig Hartman? Craig Hartman is not Gigabet. That is Daryl Dickin. Craig Hartman is Irie Guy. Craig Hartman was sort of like the dad to a bunch of young sit-and-go players who didn't have half a clue about what they were doing. He would host the annual single-table tournament heads-up tournament in Las Vegas. I played it, I think, only one time. I took 3rd place, I think. Maybe 2nd place. Andrew Obel won, and I think I took 2nd place. It was a good crew. A lot of poker players became some of the best in the world. You want to know why? Because we had good mentors around us who taught us stuff like this. We all kept a big bankroll. We all, gambled logically and appropriately. But we learned a lot about the game from the people who came before us. And I think a lot of poker players have no one to talk to who came before them, who's done a lot of stuff right and a lot of stuff wrong. I mean, I personally have taken on a few poker students who I tell them everything I know, to the point that like they can ask me any questions. I'm happy to answer them. And look, you all can I mean, I literally answer everything for you all here too, but they have like unlimited access to me, right? And every single one of them has become a good, strong, winning poker player, to the point that some of them are the best in the world. And that makes me happy, because they're taking advantage of the people who came before them. Not taking advantage of, they're making good use of me. I want to help, right? And, you know, I tell them this all the time. Make sure you play within your bankroll. You know, push the limits a little bit. Be willing to move down if things go poorly, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's important to realize that at some point you'll run worse than you ever thought possible. It's important to surround yourself with good mentors. Do not surround yourself with nonsense. Yeah? Yeah? We have a lot of underlines and bolds today. First time I've ever had such very, very clearly defined points, right? Do not surround yourself with nonsense. Instead, surround yourself with good, strong mentors who have done it before you, who ideally are still doing it today. Or, you know, they could be doing it today if they did not have other stuff to be doing themselves, right? At some point, you will run worse than you ever thought possible. So, that is it. The number one mindset flaw is entitlement. Do not be entitled. Do not think you deserve to win. You deserve to be dealt random cards and to be able to make your decisions. We say this a million times. I sound like a broken record, but it's true. But half of you don't listen to me. 98% of poker players don't listen to me. To win at poker, 3 things only you have to do. Find a game you can beat. Play it a lot and keep a proper bankroll. What does that mean? Find a game you can beat. Either you got to be way better than your opponent. Well, you got to be way better than your opponents. You got to be way better than your opponents. How do you get better than your opponents? Either find really, really, really bad players who don't know how to play, or get really good at poker. We have a poker training site to help with that. Check it out, pokercoaching.com. Links down there below. Check out pokercoaching.com. Number 2, you got to play the game a lot. You have to actually sit there and put in good volume. This is going back to mixed games and PLO. Great games, fun games, but I'm not here to have fun. I'm here to make money. Sure, I'd like to have fun, and you try to find fun in the things that you do, but if you want to make money, you got to put in volume. It's just a math problem here, right? Find a game you can beat. Take your win rate, multiply it by the number of hands you play. That's how much money you're going to make. Number 3, keep a proper bankroll. Find a game you can beat, play it a lot, and keep a proper bankroll, because at some point you will run worse than you ever thought possible. Period. So, once you accept that, when it happens, you'll be able to deal with the inevitable swings of the game. My wife bought me a green juice. How sweet is she? They have this green juice at Trader Joe's that has like 6 grams of sugar per large amount. It's really good. Green juice with no sugar is exactly what I love. Anyway, find a game you can beat, play it a lot, keep a proper bankroll, plan ahead, keep a big bankroll, and be smart. Louis Philippe says, most players give too much weight to their imagination. The key is to control your focus towards actionable things. Oh yeah, most things are not under your control at all. In a tournament, you always see people paying attention to average stack. They think, oh, if I can just be above average, then I'm going to crush the games. Like, why? What's that matter? What's it matter if you're average? Average is literally irrelevant. They focus on things like, oh man, I just lost a bad beat. Now people are going to think that they can run me over or think that I'm on tilt or whatever. Like, all this is nonsense. None of this is relevant. Oh, Defa says you were crushing games. Then you showed your friends your beautiful graph. Be careful premature celebrating. Want me to tell you a little thing that I think? Again, a lot of people don't like this. I think almost all celebration is premature because we're not done yet. You're only really done when you are Djokovic and you win a gold medal and every other title possible. Then maybe you're done when you're old and you're about to retire and you realize you're probably over the hill. That's when you're done. That's when you can celebrate. You see me winning poker tournaments. I don't jump up and down and scream and yell and act crazy because I realize I'm not done yet. I'm just going to go play another tournament. What's the end game? I don't even know. My wife actually asked, or no, my wife, one of my wife's friends asked me this yesterday, like, when do poker players quit? Like, I guess when they have enough money to retire. I guess they're tired of playing. I guess when they're over the hill and they're not winning anymore. But look, yeah, I guess celebrate successes, be happy with wins and victories, but also if you don't really get too high when you're winning, I don't think you get all that low when you're losing. At least I don't. I know that whenever I start to let my imagination get the best of me, as Louis Philippe says here, and I start to anticipate things, and I think, oh man, I have a lot of chips in this tournament, and maybe I'm going to start to win it. It never goes well. I don't think it's ever gone well. But, I mean, maybe it's just variance again, but then I'm like let down when I lose. This happens to everybody in the World Series main event. They go to the main event, they think, all right, this is my year. I'm going to win the main event in $10 million. And then they play and then they lose and they're sad. Or they get to like where I got this year. I busted in 300th place or something like that. And I had like, I don't even know, a bunch of starting stacks. I think at the most, I don't even know how many I had. I already forget because it doesn't really matter, honestly. But let's say I have 50 starting stacks. You start thinking, oh man, I have 50 starting stacks. This is like a lot of chips. Then you look around and you realize so does everybody else. And there's 500 people left. So I'm what, 1 in 500 to win? I don't even know if you all know math, but 1 in 500 is not a lot. Right? 1 in 500 is not a lot. So to get emotionally wrapped up in the idea that, oh, maybe I can win the main event, it's actually possible. It's irrelevant. It's just like nonsense in your head. And then when you lose, you feel all the worse. This year, I can proudly say I didn't get wrapped up in emotions at all. I just sat there, had a good time, tried to make the tables jovial, and played good poker for 5 days straight. Then I lost. And that's cool. We actually went through hands last week on this show, if you want to go back and watch that when you're done here, where I go through a lot of the key hands that I played. We also have all the key hands I played on pokercoaching.com, so make sure you check those out. Anyway, premature celebration, getting wrapped up in things that make you excited is trouble. How do you find a game you can beat when it comes to playing online? Sit your butt in the chair and play. And if you're winning, great. And if you're not winning, not great, right? I think that if you sit and you put in good volume, let's say you play, 100 hours, 4 tables at a time at some game online, you'll probably have a pretty good idea of if you're winning or losing, especially in cash games. Tournaments are a little bit more difficult because there's way more variance in tournaments. The buy-ins are all over the place. It's a little bit tricky. But in cash games, it's often kind of clear if you're winning or losing, right? So put your butt in the chair and play. So many people want to just like play 2 hours and say, oh, am I winning? The answer is you don't know. You don't know. What is a proper bankroll? Check out pokercoaching.com/bankroll. pokercoaching.com/bankroll. In the middle stakes, you think a studied player has a greater edge at cash games or tournaments. What does mid-stakes mean, right? You have to realize at $1,000 tournaments, if you're good, maybe you're making 25% return on investment, $250 per game. Say you're making $250 per game and you can play 2 games a day. That's $500 per day on average. With what, 200K swings, give or take. Okay, so how much do you make playing 5-10 no limit? Probably comparable swings. Well, you make about $100 an hour if you're good. Say you play 8 hours a day, that's $800 a day. Swings might be a little bit bigger. Maybe not, maybe smaller actually. You probably only need like 75K to play 5-10 if you're really good. So you need less money, and you'll have the ability to put in more volume, and there'll be less variance. So what's the answer to that? The answer is cash games. I think you really only want to play tournaments from a make money point of view when you can't find enough volume in cash games to the point that your schedule is full, right? Of course, there's more, call it clout or credibility in tournaments, right? And maybe that's worth something to people. It's nice to have trophies. I mean, look all around. Trophies everywhere in here. Trophies here, trophies there, trophy all over my Vegas place. Trophies everywhere. But if you're trying to make money, play the game that makes you the most money. It's a math problem. It's purely a math problem. Sit down, do the math, figure out what makes the most money. Speaking of making money, we have a $2,000 free roll tonight. Completely free for all of you to play if you've never signed up for Coin Poker. In order to get in, you must use that link, pokercoaching.com/freeroll. I will be streaming it tonight, right here on this channel. Wherever you're watching it, I'll be streaming it here. It'll be a lot of fun. We're going to do this every week for a year. $100,000 Coin Poker has given me to give away to all of you. I don't know too many people in the poker space today in 2024 who are giving away $100,000 to little old Jonathan Little to give away to the people who support him and his channel. But here we are. here we are. Take it, enjoy it, make good use of it. How do you keep your mental game focused throughout a live tournament? You've been finding that you get tired a few hours in. Well, that's an interesting topic. I think I was very fortunate in that I started playing competitive games at a young age. When I was 6 years old, I started playing chess. I didn't play chess tournaments. I played a lot of chess online, though, and I could easily sit and play many hours at a time. But then I moved to Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering Live requires you to sit and play 14 hours a day sometimes, or at least it did in the past. And I'm sure I struggled with focus and mindset and all that back then because I was 12 years old. I was probably a total idiot. But I learned. You sit there, you grind hard, you work hard, and you learn, right? I got very lucky in that one of the very important skills for live poker tournaments I learned at a very young age, which is why you actually look at a lot of the best poker players in the world today. A lot of them started 12 years old playing Magic the Gathering. A nerdy game that teaches you math, statistics, economics, and focus. Also in Magic, you're playing one-on-one, so it's like kind of playing heads up compared to poker, where you're just like not doing anything most of the time. So heads up Magic is it's a tough game. That's like the only way you play Magic, really, in tournaments. Also, you can get practice, right? As Louis Philippe says, start playing online, even at tiny stakes. I'm a really, really, really big fan of playing tiny stakes online to practice things that are not playing good poker, but instead focusing or playing more tables at a time, right? You don't have to play for a lot of money to get experience playing for long hours and doing your best to focus, or multi-tabling. What's your ELO at chess? Oh my God, I'm embarrassed. Back in the day when I was a child, I would wake up and play poker every morning. I was about 2,000 online, which is pretty good for a child, playing 1-minute games and 2-minute games. But who knows if that rating is actually real, because it was on a site called pogo.com back in the day. And I'm sure that's not anything like it is today. I honestly don't know what my rating is today. I can still beat my son James. I do not play chess much at all, because honestly, I don't like chess. I don't like chess for one major reason, and that is that you will never succeed at a high level. I think that's demoralizing. Now, I realize that this is coming from someone who has succeeded at a high level at many things. I was very good at Magic the Gathering, highly ranked. I mean, hell, 2,000 at chess as a kid is pretty good. But that's nowhere near, quote-unquote, good enough at chess. I think that is a demoralizing thing to think that I can devote my life to this, and I will literally never be anywhere near the top. And that's tough. That's a tough thing. So I think that's pretty rough. I also think that you're always playing kind of like an uphill battle in chess, right? Like you never just kind of have it easy and just get to crush your opponents, right? Like in poker, you want to have it easy. Just move down 3 stakes and crush your opponents. It's not hard. So like you have the ability to make money, right? I think it's kind of tough that you can't make real money from poker unless you're from a chess, unless you're a content creator, which is fine and good. I mean, don't get me wrong. Nothing wrong with that. But again, I don't really love Magic the Gathering in the live space either for similar reasons. I love poker, not because I like the actual game of poker the most, but it's because you can actually make an income from poker if you're good. There are very few mind games that you can actually make any sort of real income from as purely a player. And look, I get that I'm a content creator at the end of the day, so like I make lots of money from content creation, right? But there are plenty of people who make money purely from sitting their butt in the chair and playing the game. Whereas that's just not the case with almost any other mind sport. What's my take on the Tamayo final table laptop controversy? It's not a controversy. Check out last week's show. I discussed it for like 10 minutes at the beginning of the show. Literally only the top 2 or 3 chess players actually make money from it. I mean, look, actually make money from playing chess? Yeah, I mean, I know that, which is why I don't really love it. Plus the fact that you can literally never be the best. Because look, at the end of the day, the people who are like super sickos at chess, they're savants, right? They're super, super, super naturally inclined to be good at chess. And I'm not. So knowing that, my kids probably won't be. Knowing that, Everyone I know in life probably won't be. And even if they are very good, they're still not good enough. That's tough. That's tough to play a game and devote your life to and just know you're never going to be good enough. That's not for me. I like to know that I can kind of do something and make it to some extent. How much should you have in your bankroll for taking a shot at live 1-2? I mean, look, if you're taking a shot, you don't need that much money in reality. Also, what is your risk of ruin? Like, do you care if you lose $1,000? If you lose $1,000 and it's not going to be detrimental to you, I'd tell you to go play 1-2 because you'll probably crush it. That said, you're new to it, so maybe you sell half your action to a friend, so you're playing smaller stakes, etc., etc. Is Magic the Gathering still around? Absolutely. Isn't online ruined by cheaters and solvers? No, not at all. Chess? No, I don't think so. Poker? No, I don't think so. All right, I have to go do a webinar for poker coaching members. We have a fun spot today. Let's see if I can find it. Do I have it pulled up? I do. Whatever. Too small. You have 30 big blinds in a tournament. Folds skew in the cutoff. What do? Suppose you raise to 2.2 and the big blind calls. Flop comes King 5-3. What is your strategy? Did you all know? On King 5-3, you raise the cutoff and the big blind calls. You should continuation bet almost never. How do we know? We use math. Math is great. Here's the GTO solution. I'll blow this up so you can see it a little better. Here's the GTO solution, give or take. All these hands in green check, all these hands in red bet, all the hands in black, you would have played differently. As you can see here, almost no betting. You're betting 14% of the time. Anytime you're betting very infrequently from out of position, I would generally recommend you check everything. Next. Suppose you check and the button bet small. What do? You should know, if you've studied at pokercoaching.com at all, that when you check out of position and your opponent bets small on the flop, you need to have a check raising range. Why? Well, because that's math. So what do we check raise? We always check raise very polarized, good made hands and draws. What does that look like? These hands in red. What are good made hands on King 5-3? Pocket aces is really good. Ace King's really good. King Queen's really good. King Jack's really good. And then some draws. King 5-3, 2 spades. Lots of flush draws check raising. That's this little slivers of red. And lots of backdoor draws like ace of spades. That's like ace 7. You check raise the ace 7 on the King 5-3 when you bet small. I said it wrong. Cutoff against button. This is cutoff against button. My fault if I said it wrong. You raise cutoff button calls. You're out of position. Anyway, back to the question. Suppose we just call. Turns an ace, you both check. River's a 10 of hearts. What do? Not going to spoil that for you. But we're going to be discussing that in the poker coaching homework coming out right now on pokercoaching.com. You can go over there, sign up, get right in it. Wow, you moved to GCO Wizard Card Matrices. This is actually the new Poker Coaching Peak program. It's not released yet. It'll be out soon. Everyone's afraid of RTA. And then they want to exploit, and nobody wants to play the solve. Yeah, I mean, you know how it is. Magnus Carlsen was apparently smart. Yeah, really? You think so? Why do some states spread limit games and others don't? Often based on demand, sometimes based on the law of various places. Anyway, that's going to be it for today. Hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. Make sure you come back tonight, by the way, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Where did my PowerPoint go? 8 p.m. Eastern Time, pokercoaching.com/freeroll. Get in the game. I'll be there. You can play against me. You can take my money. I think we may be doing some prizes for people who play today and interact with our post on Twitter. So pay attention. Go to twitter.com/JonathanLittle. Make sure you follow me. Make sure you get in our Discord. Our Discord is linked hopefully everywhere. If not, go to pokercoaching.com, click on the community tab. You hate the word genius. Yeah, well, if there's ever a genius, it's probably Magnus Carlsen. Final table at Hard Rock. Congrats. You've been a poker coaching member for a month. It works. Congrats. I will accept all of the good run of variance that you have. All right, everybody. I got to go to the poker coaching homework. Good luck. Have fun. Thanks again for being here. If you enjoyed the show, click the like and subscribe button down there. Click the notification bell. I'm not going to be here for like a month on Mondays, okay? I'm going on a family vacation. I'll tell you when I'll be back. Let me look at my calendar. I will be back with this show on September 23rd. Now, I have YouTube content coming out every day or two, so there's plenty of Jonathan Little content on YouTube, so don't forget to check out that. But I have A lot going on in life. I will be streaming, I think, a 2550 game on Sunday, August 11th, 18th, 25th, and September 1st. 4 2550 games. I'll be streaming, I think, at noon on Sundays. Okay? So slightly different content, slightly different time. That's when they play that game. And that's that. Good luck in your games. Have fun. Thank you again for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you. I wish all of you the best of luck. I'll see you tonight in the free roll. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Jonathan Little. Get in there. Get the free money. We have $100,000 to give away to you over the next year. Please take it. I'll talk to all of you next.